The shuttle broke through Zithra's thick orange clouds, shaking as it descended toward the jagged surface below. Rocks as tall as mountains jutted from the ground, and strange storms flickered across the sky. Lieutenant Kale sat calmly in the cockpit, fingers resting lightly on the control panel. Around him, alien observers watched from their hovering ships, shaking their heads in disbelief. Deathworlders? There is no such thing, one alien laughed, its voice echoing through the comms. Humans cannot survive here. Kale ignored the laughter. He opened the hatch and stepped out, boots crunching on a sharp red gravel that seemed to bite at the metal soles. The air was thick, filled with a chemical tang that made the aliens wrinkle their faces in disgust. Kale took a deep breath, testing his new environment, then moved forward, scanning everything with careful, steady eyes. He did not run. He did not panic. He simply walked. Nearby, a massive shadow stirred. A predator, easily 10 times the size of a human, with scales that shimmered like molten metal, crept through the jagged rocks. Its eyes, glowing faintly, locked onto Kale. The alien observers held their breath. Every law of survival said the human should panic, should flee, but Kale stayed calm. He stopped a few meters away, crouched slightly, and studied the predator. It snarled low in its throat, a warning rumble that shook the ground. Kale moved slowly, raising a hand, not as a threat but as a greeting. The predator hesitated, sensing something different in this human. Kale's calm, deliberate movements seemed to reach past the instinct to attack. The aliens whispered to each other in disbelief. No human can survive contact with this creature, one said. Yet here he stands, unafraid. Kale began to walk alongside the predator, keeping his movements smooth and careful. He talked softly, not to command but to connect. The predator's growl faded to a low hum, curiosity overtaking aggression. Kale reached out a hand, fingertips brushing the thick, scaly skin. The predator flinched once, then relaxed, letting the touch linger. The aliens outside recorded every second, their sensors struggling to make sense of what they were seeing. Kale moved farther into the wilderness, the predator following him silently. He examined the ground, noting plants that seemed poisonous, water that shimmered with strange minerals, and small creatures that scuttled under rocks. He picked up a smooth stone, tapped it, and listened to the echoes. Everything he did was careful, deliberate, showing an understanding of the environment that went beyond instinct. Night fell quickly on Zithra. The sky turned a deep violet and twin moons rose, casting strange shadows over the jagged landscape. Kale built a small shelter from rocks and the few scraps of material he carried. The predator settled beside him, low to the ground, its eyes scanning the darkness while its body radiated a calm confidence. Kale offered it some food he had packed, and it accepted without hesitation. The aliens watched, amazed. It is not just surviving, one whispered. It is thriving. Kale looked up at the stars, thinking about how strange and dangerous this planet was. Yet he felt no fear, only curiosity and respect. He had faced death worlds before in training, but this one tested even his limits. Still, he moved forward, calm and steady, understanding that survival was not about fighting everything, it was about reading, learning, and adapting. The aliens observed in stunned silence as Kale and the predator disappeared into the jagged valleys. The laughter from before had vanished. The so-called myth of humans had a living example now, and it was walking boldly into a world that no one else had ever mastered. Kale's calm, careful steps set the tone for what was to come. On Zithra, humans were not just survivors, they were something else entirely. By the time the alien ships pulled away to report back, Kale had already found a path deeper into the wilderness, the predator at his side, both moving with a silent understanding. The planet was harsh, dangerous, and alive, but Kale was ready. And somewhere deep in the alien ranks a question formed. Maybe humans were the true predators of death worlds, not the other way around. Kale moved quietly through the jagged rocks, the predator trailing close behind. The air was heavy with the smell of strange minerals and the faint tang of electricity from the storm clouds above. Every step was careful, measured, yet confident. The aliens watched from their hovering ships, their sensors focused on him. They whispered among themselves, disbelief clear in their voices. No human can survive long here, one said. Yet he walks as if the planet were calm and safe. Suddenly the ground shook. From behind a rock formation, another predator emerged. This one was even larger than the first, with black scales that shimmered like oil and eyes that glowed red in the dim light. It let out a deafening roar, a sound that would have frozen any creature in terror. The aliens gasped, certain the human would panic, or die. Kale stopped and raised his hands slowly, palms open. His voice, calm and steady, carried across the space between them. "Easy," he said softly. The first predator growled low, a warning to the newcomer, but it did not attack. Kale took a small step forward, careful to show no threat. The larger predator crouched, muscles tense, but did not move closer. Kale spoke again, quietly, almost like a whisper. The first predator nudged him gently as if to show support. The second predator tilted its head, curiosity taking the place of aggression. Kale knelt, keeping his movements slow, and extended a hand toward the massive creature. The aliens outside gasped, some even turning away, unable to watch. The predator sniffed the air, unsure of this human. Kale's calm presence seemed to reach it. Slowly, it lowered its massive head, nostrils flaring, and allowed Kale's hand to touch its rough scales. The first predator pressed against Kale's side, a quiet signal of trust. The aliens whispered in stunned voices. "He is controlling it?" "No, not controlling, he is speaking to it without words." Kale stayed kneeling, his eyes locked on the larger predator. He noticed small signs, twitches of its tail, the way its eyes flicked to him, the rise and fall of its breathing. He mimicked its movements slightly, a subtle way of showing he was not a threat. Gradually, the predator relaxed, lowering its body to the ground and letting Kale stroke its thick, scaled head. The first predator nudged him happily, purring low in a way that made the alien sensors spike in confusion. 4 hours, Kale and the predators remained like this, moving together slowly through the rocky landscape. He taught them how to follow without danger, how to read the terrain, and how to avoid the sharp, hidden dangers of Zithra. The aliens watched in silence, their understanding of humans shifting. What they had expected, panic, chaos, death, had been replaced with calm, intelligence, and connection. Night fell quickly, and the sky filled with lightning that painted the jagged rocks in fleeting bursts of white. Kale found a small cave and guided both predators inside. He set up a simple barrier of stones, enough to mark a safe space, then offered food to the second predator. It sniffed carefully, then accepted the ration. Kale's calm, steady movements reassured both creatures, and they settled near him, protective but trusting. The aliens above whispered in awe. "It is not fear that keeps him alive," one said. "It is understanding. Humans do not fight death worlds, they move with them." Another voice added, "Perhaps that is why they survive where nothing else does." Kale sat against the cave wall, running a hand over the first predator's scales and watching the second one. He noticed the small details, the twitch of an ear, the shift of a paw, the tiny sparks in the air that hinted at danger. He moved deliberately, always calm, always aware. For Kale, survival was not about weapons or force. It was about patience, observation, and respect. As the first light of dawn touched the jagged peaks, Kale stood, signaling the predators to follow. They moved together as a team, silent and precise. Every step was measured, every movement showing trust. The aliens observed in stunned silence. They had come expecting chaos, but what they saw was something far more remarkable. A human walking through a world of monsters, calm and unafraid, connecting with creatures that should have been deadly. For the first time, the aliens began to question their assumptions. "Deathworlders are a myth?" one said quietly. "No," another replied. "Humans are something else entirely." Kale, unaware of the full impact of his actions, continued deeper into the wilderness, the predators by his side. On Zithra, survival was not a matter of strength, it was a matter of understanding. And Kale the human had mastered it. Kale moved deeper into Zithra's wild terrain, the two predators following silently behind. The landscape was unforgiving, jagged rocks, sharp plants, and hidden crevices littered the ground. Streams of strange, glowing water twisted through the valleys, and the air carried a metallic tang that made breathing difficult. Most creatures would have fled or panicked, but Kale walked steadily, his eyes scanning every detail. The predators mirrored his calm, moving with quiet precision, watching the world as he did. He needed water first. Kale spotted a small pool, its surface glowing faintly with chemicals he did not recognize. He knelt and dipped a makeshift filter, testing it carefully before drinking. The predators sniffed the edge and lapped cautiously after him. Every move Kale made was careful but confident. To an alien observer, it looked like a dance. One wrong step and they would all die, but Kale's confidence was born from knowledge, instinct, and patience. Next came food. The valley was full of small, sharp-toothed creatures that moved too quickly to catch with brute force. Kale watched, learning their patterns. He picked up a rock and flicked it lightly, startling a creature into the open. He caught it with his hands and quickly prepared it to eat. The predators watched, fascinated but patient, learning from him. Kale tossed a piece to each, watching them take it gently, never aggressive. He taught them without words. As the day passed, Kale built small shelters from rocks and hardened plant fibers, protecting himself and the predators from the strong winds and sudden electrical storms that swept the valley. He used the predator's instincts to his advantage. One would stand guard while the other helped him gather resources. He observed the environment carefully, noting where dangerous plants grew, which areas were prone to rock slides, and which rocks hid poisonous insects. Each step was deliberate, showing a blend of human intelligence and patience that the aliens above could not understand. The predators began to respond to Kale's signals. A tilt of the head, a hand gesture, or a soft sound would guide them to a safer path or warn them of danger. Kale noticed subtle signs, the twitch of an ear, a flick of the tail, the way their eyes darted to certain areas. He moved in harmony with them, and slowly the predators became more than companions, they were partners. They protected him as much as he guided them, and together they explored the world that had been called deadly. Night came quickly, and the alien observers watched as Kale set up a small camp in a rocky alcove. He started a fire using a spark and dried plant fibers, keeping it small but controlled. The predators settled beside him, low to the ground, their eyes scanning the dark for threats. Kale offered them portions of his food and talked softly, almost as if explaining the world to them. They responded with low hums and soft purrs, showing trust and calm. The aliens whispered among themselves. "It is not just strength that allows him to survive," one said. "It is understanding, observation, patience. Nothing else on this planet works this way." Another added, "He reads the predators as if they speak, but there are no words." Kale did not know he was being watched so closely, but his calm presence left a mark on every observer. Over the next few days, Kale explored caves, climbed sharp cliffs, and crossed shallow rivers. He noticed patterns in the storms and the movements of other predators. He even used glowing plants to mark safe paths and warn of danger. The predators followed, learning from him while protecting him instinctively. Every challenge, the steep cliffs, sudden storms, hidden pits, was met with careful thought rather than panic. The aliens recorded everything, struggling to explain how a human could survive, adapt, and even thrive in a place they believed was impossible. One afternoon, Kale came across a nest of small, spiky creatures. He studied them quietly, learning which were dangerous and which were safe. The predators stayed still, watching him. Using his hands and soft gestures, he guided them to avoid the spikes while collecting safe food. He shared the discovery with the predators, showing them how to benefit without harm. The aliens above murmured in amazement. "He does not conquer this world with weapons," one said. "He moves with it. He adapts. He belongs." By the end of the week, Kale had established a small network of shelters, safe water sources, and feeding spots. The predators were calm and attentive, following his subtle signals and learning his ways. Kale had not just survived Zithra, he had adapted to it, become part of it. Every movement was careful, deliberate, and full of understanding. The aliens hovered silently, recording everything. They had come to observe a human die. Instead, they watched a human teach predators, survive storms, navigate deadly terrain, and thrive where nothing else could. The idea of humans as fragile beings shattered. Kale was patient, intelligent, and connected to the life around him. He had shown the aliens that humans did not merely survive. They understood, adapted, and excelled. Kale sat by a small fire that night, the predators curled against him and looked at the sky. Zithra was still dangerous, still wild, but he felt no fear. He understood its patterns, its dangers, and its gifts. Survival here was not about strength or weapons. It was about learning, adapting, and moving with life rather than against it. And Kale, the human, had done all three. The alien ships hovered silently above the jagged valleys of Zithra, sensors trained on Kale and his two predators. At first, they had laughed, convinced this human would die in hours, maybe minutes. Now, after watching him for days, the laughter was gone. Confusion replaced it. Whispered debates filled the comm channels. "How can he survive here?" one alien asked. "He moves with the predators. He predicts the storms. He avoids dangers that would destroy others." A biologist among the aliens studied the recordings closely. Every movement, every interaction told a story the sensors could not fully explain. Kale did not fight the predators, he listened to them. He did not ignore the environment, he read it. He moved carefully, patiently, yet nothing slowed him. The biologist shook its head. "Humans are unlike any species we know. They do not dominate, they understand." Kale walked through a narrow canyon, the predators flanking him. One rock wall was slick with moisture and sharp crystals that could cut a hand in a second. The predators avoided it instinctively, but Kale had already scanned it and marked a safe path with small stones. He guided them with subtle gestures, a tilt of his hand, a shift of his weight. The predators followed perfectly. The aliens whispered again. "He communicates without sound," said one. "His movements, his presence, it changes the predators. They obey him but not from fear. From trust. From respect." Another alien frowned. "He reads patterns, learns without teaching. How can a species survive where instinct alone kills?" Kale stopped at a small stream of glowing water. One predator sniffed, wary. Kale knelt, touched the surface and watched how the currents moved. He found a spot safe to drink and cupped water in his hands. The predators drank beside him, calm and unafraid. The aliens recorded every detail, trying to reconcile what they saw with their knowledge. One whispered in disbelief, "Humans, they are not just survivors. They adapt. They teach. They bond." Later, a sudden storm roared through the canyon, lightning flashing across jagged peaks. Most creatures would flee, but Kale moved with purpose. He led the predators to a natural alcove, a small overhang that shielded them from the worst of the storm. He adjusted their positions, keeping them safe and calm. Aliens above observed in awe. "No human should be able to read the storms like this," said one. "Yet he does it instinctively. It is unnatural." As the storm raged, Kale watched the predators carefully. One flinched at a sudden crack of thunder. Kale spoke softly, his voice barely audible over the wind, and placed a hand on its side. The predator calmed immediately, leaning into him. The aliens noticed the small details, the way Kale mirrored the predator's movements, how he anticipated reactions, how he showed no fear. "This is understanding," murmured the biologist. "Not control. Understanding." By the time the storm passed, Kale had guided both predators safely to higher ground. The landscape was treacherous, sharp rocks, shifting gravel and hidden pits, but he navigated with ease. He observed each foot placement, each step of the predators, teaching without words, leading without force. Aliens above exchanged worried glances. "He is not human in our sense," said one. "He is something more." Over the next few days, Kale explored hidden caves, climbed cliffs, and crossed unstable terrain. The predators followed his lead, learning from him. He marked safe zones, pointed out hazards, and shared food from the small animals he caught. Every interaction was patient, deliberate, and full of understanding. Aliens realized that his survival was not about fighting the planet, it was about cooperating with it, reading it, and respecting it. The alien observers began to reconsider their assumptions. "We came expecting death," said one quietly. "We expected the humans to fail, to panic, to die." Another shook its head. "But he teaches the predators, adapts to the storms, reads the land, he survives because he understands life in ways we cannot." One ship's biologist transmitted a simple message back to the fleet. "Human physiology is remarkable. But it is more than physiology. The intelligence, the patience, the ability to bond with predators, this is not merely survival. This is mastery. Humans are something else entirely." Kale sat one evening on a rocky ledge, the predators resting beside him. The sky was full of swirling clouds, a mixture of green and orange light from the storms. He looked at the predators and nodded gently. They understood. They trusted him completely. The aliens above watched silently, the realization settling in. Humans were not fragile. Humans were not merely clever, they were adaptive, resilient, and capable of forming bonds that no alien species could fully comprehend. By the end of the week, the alien ships had stopped laughing, stopped doubting, and stopped underestimating. Kale had not just survived Zithra, he had changed the way they thought about humans. They whispered among themselves, finally understanding that the myths about Deathworlders were false. Humans were not myths, they were a new kind of force, a species that did not conquer through strength alone but through patience, intelligence, and understanding. Kale stood, watching the horizon, the predators moving calmly at his side. The aliens above knew they had witnessed something extraordinary. Their perspective had shifted. For the first time, they realized humans were not just dangerous, they were unmatched in ways the galaxy had never seen. And Kale, the human, continued forward, unaware of the profound lesson he had already taught. Kale climbed to the top of a jagged ridge, the predators following silently at his side. Below him, the valley stretched wide and dangerous, filled with sharp rocks, glowing streams, and creatures that would have killed most beings instantly. He stood tall, surveying the land, calm and unafraid. The predators rested beside him, their massive bodies relaxed, their eyes scanning for danger but trusting him completely. The alien ships hovered above, recording every movement. Their sensors had tracked him for days, but nothing could fully explain what they saw. The aliens had come expecting a human to fail, to panic, to die. Instead, they had witnessed a species that survived, adapted, and thrived in a place where life itself seemed impossible. The biologist among them spoke quietly, almost in awe. Humans are extraordinary. Not because of strength alone, but because of understanding. They connect. They adapt. They endure. Kale led the predators down a narrow path to a small clearing with a pool of fresh water. He knelt, cupped the water in his hands and drank. The predators followed, lapping cautiously after him. He examined the plants nearby, selecting safe ones for food. Every move was precise, careful, yet natural. The aliens could not stop observing. "He does not just survive," one whispered. "He teaches life itself. He teaches the predators. He teaches the land." A sudden movement in the rocks caught Kale's eye, a smaller predator, curious but cautious, watching him from a distance. Instead of fear, he smiled softly and extended a hand. The two larger predators nudged him protectively, but they did not attack. Kale remained still, showing patience and calm. Slowly, the smaller predator stepped closer, eventually joining the group. The aliens above watched in astonishment. No human should have been able to bond with three predators on a death world. Yet Kale had done it, not through force or dominance, but through respect and understanding. Night fell and the twin moons rose, casting a pale glow over the jagged terrain. Kale built a small fire using dry plant fibers, keeping it low and safe. The predators lay beside him, relaxed and trusting. He shared food with the smallest one and patted their heads gently. For Kale it was simple. Trust and patience created bonds that weapons never could. For the aliens it was revolutionary. Above, the alien ships communicated quietly. "We have underestimated humans," said one. "They survive where we thought survival impossible. They teach life to creatures that should attack them. They thrive in death worlds as if they belong here." Another voice added, "Humans are not myths. They are something beyond what we imagined." Kale noticed distant movement, a massive predator that had been lurking in the shadows. The predators at his side growled softly, alert. Kale raised a hand and they immediately understood. He did not attack. He did not panic. He approached carefully, speaking softly, his hand extended in peace. The large predator sniffed the air, studied him, and then settled beside him, calm. Kale had gained the trust of another deadly creature without conflict. The aliens above fell silent, awed by what they witnessed. For the first time, they understood that human survival was not about weapons or brute force. It was about observation, patience, and empathy. Kale had survived Zithra not because he was stronger than the predators, not because he was faster than the storms, but because he understood the world and its creatures. He moved with the planet, not against it. He adapted, learned, and formed bonds that no alien could have predicted. As dawn approached, Kale stood on a ridge, the four predators beside him, looking over the vast, dangerous landscape. The alien ships hovered silently, realizing they had witnessed a lesson in humanity. Strength alone did not make humans extraordinary. Courage alone did not define them. It was their patience, intelligence, understanding, and ability to form connections that made them capable of thriving anywhere, even on a planet designed to kill. Kale took a deep breath, feeling the wind and the smell of the strange plants around him. He did not look at the alien ships above. He did not need to. He was not performing for them. His calm, confident presence and his bond with the predators were enough to teach the lesson. Humans survived not because they were myths or machines. They survived because they understood life, adapted to it, and respected it. The aliens left slowly, sending back reports to their fleets. Humans are not fragile. They are unmatched in patience, intelligence, and adaptability, the biologist transmitted. They survive death worlds because they connect with life, not because they conquer it. They are a new kind of force in the galaxy. Kale, unaware of the full impact of his presence, walked with the predators through the jagged valleys. The planet was still dangerous, still wild, still full of life that could kill any ordinary being. But for Kale it was home, at least for now. He had survived, adapted, and formed bonds that turned deadly creatures into companions. The aliens' myths had been shattered. Humans were not myths. They were something else entirely. And as Kale disappeared into the glowing mist of Zithra, the predators moving silently at his side, the galaxy began to realize a truth that no one had truly understood before. Humanity was not merely strong. Humanity was intelligent, patient, and capable of teaching life itself. Humans were more than survivors. They were a force of understanding in a universe that had never seen their like.